Which Ecuador visa offers the easiest path for residency? Many expats find that they are actually eligible for multiple residency visas, but which one is best for you? I'm joined by an experienced visa expert who's going to run through the 5 most popular Ecuador visas with us, including the pros and cons of each. We'll also be doing a little visa myth busting and give some tips to choosing a visa provider. Vamos! I'm joined today by Betsy Prado, visa facilitator for Expat Law Group. I've worked with many different visa providers and I do like the way Betsy and her team work with clients, but we'll touch more on this later. Welcome, Betsy. Great to have you here. Please just give us a quick introduction, especially your experience assisting clients with Ecuadorian visas.
Thank you, Jason. At Expat Law Group, I specialize in immigration. I'm focused on helping clients to navigate their complexities to obtain their temporary residency visas or permanent residency visas. With all my experience for years, I have been working with many people and families to obtain their visas and making Ecuador their new home.
Awesome, Betsy. That's fantastic. Let's delve into the different visa types now, starting with perhaps the most popular visa type, the pensioner visa. What are the basic requirements and the process for obtaining a pensioner visa in Ecuador?
Yes, the retirement visa is one of the famous visas, an easy way to obtain a temporary status in Ecuador. You need to prove your income every month, showing you have a stable income, and you need to show an official document that you have this retirement. As well, you need to prove your background checks from your country, your home country. If you are from the United States, you need to prove FBI and States Police report, and your health insurance as well.
Awesome. And what is the minimum income requirements at the moment for the pensioner visa?
Right now, it's $1,410 per month.
Every month?
Yeah, it's the minimum.
Got it. And just walk me through some more of the pros and cons of choosing the pensioner visa for retirees that are considering moving here.
The main pro is that the pensioner visa has a straightforward visa application process, and the requirements are super easy to get. The con is that these income requirements are amongst the highest all visa types of Ecuador. Is $1,410 right now.
Yeah, got it. And so in terms of the documentation that's required, I do understand it's probably one of the easiest. So let's say you're from the US, what sort of documentation would they need? Something from Social Security, or how does that work?
From the United States, you need the Social Security, FBI, States Police report, and you're gonna need a health insurance from Ecuador.
Okay, great.
Whilst we have included the income requirement as an con when I compare it to other visas in Ecuador, the amount is actually one of the lower side if we compare with other countries in South America and even in Europe.
Got it. Yeah, I've seen some of these, like we're getting inquiries a lot in real estate from people, let's say coming from Panama, coming from Costa Rica, even coming from Mexico now, partly because the income requirements are a lot higher in those other countries. So yeah,
and it's complicated getting the documentation actually too.
Got it. And before we move on to the next visa type, let's just touch on the timeline side of things. How far in advance of their planned move do you suggest that expats start gathering their documents in their passport country?
My suggestion is to contact us at least about 6 months before you are planning to move to Ecuador. But you should always know that last-minute processes are not the best idea. It is necessary to request documents in time. So it's better to be cautious, and we can evaluate each case because not all the cases are exactly the same.
The timing, I think, is very important, especially when it comes to the background checks and the how long those documents are actually eligible for. So it can actually be a little bit complex from the outside going through the first visa process to understand, okay, which document do I need here? Which document do I need there? And so I do think it makes sense, like reaching out to a visa professional with as much notice as humanly possible is probably the best way to go about it. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'm agree.
Okay, awesome. And now the great majority, but not all expats, take an exploratory trip to Ecuador before moving permanently. Now, do you suggest that they bring their documents with them during the exploratory trip, or wait and apply when they return to Ecuador on a more permanent basis?
Great question. It depends on their plans. But if you're not sure, if you don't know all the requirements, if you don't contact visa professional specialists before, if you're not sure if this document meet all the requirements they ask for in Ecuador, I suggest first make a trip to Ecuador and then evaluate which area, which place, documents, before you come with documents, because sometimes maybe you're gonna need another extra document and you won't have time to obtain this document here from Ecuador, so you need to come back to the States to obtain this document. Maybe this can make that you lose the other ones and you need to restart doing
God.
the
So
whole
again, it's the
process.
timing side of things, which can change a lot. So I guess the question there, if before someone comes on an exploratory trip, would you suggest that they reach out if they're considering a visa, or when is the appropriate time for someone to reach out for assistance?
Before the exploratory trip. So we can make suggestions.
Sure.
So it's the best time.
Awesome. That's really helpful. Thank you. And now I'm sure that many of our viewers have questions about their own eligibility. How can someone contact you should they want to ask a question?
Yeah, of course. We do offer 15 minutes consultations. And the easiest way to have access to this is getting to our website, www.expatlawgroup.com, and then you can book a 15 minutes consultation.
Okay, fantastic. I will provide links to this in the description at the bottom here. And so now moving on to the investor visa. This is one that we have quite a bit of crossover in dealing with property. Property is one of the ways that you can obtain the investor visa. So it's probably the one that I am most comfortable with, just in terms of pure knowledge. But can you just explain to me the requirements and steps involved in acquiring the investor visa here in Ecuador?
Yeah, the investor visa requires a few documents, different ones depending which investment you want to make in Ecuador. Properties or via CD in a cooperativa or bank in Ecuador. So if you are going to apply with a property, then you need to prove this property is under your name and is registered under your name. You're still gonna need the FBI background checks. You're still gonna need to prove your income from the last month prior application. But this is the basic salary for Ecuador. It's $470 right now.
Got it. So that's for each applicant, or let's say I'm the primary visa holder for the investment visa. I have to prove I have $470 every month. If I have a spouse or something like that wants to be as a dependent on that visa, do they also have to have additional income requirements?
It depends. If you are the visa holder, you need to prove your income from the last month prior application with this amount. If your spouse are going to apply, then you need an extra $250 income in your account. And per kid as well, if you are going to apply.
So an extra $250 per each dependent.
Each dependent.
Fantastic. And how much is the investment right now?
Right now, the investment is $47,000 in properties or in a CD.
Cool. And so you mentioned before that these are the two main actions that people generally invest in, but I'm also aware that there are some other avenues like shares in the business and stuff like that. How popular are those other options compared to the main two?
It's not that popular, but I know a few cases that they have shares in a company and they still can apply for an investment visa.
Got it.
It needs exactly the same amount. The minimum amount is $47,000.
Got it. That's obviously a very different type of investment though. Obviously each investment has its own risk profile. This is absolutely not investment advice right now. So yes, I do have quite a bit of experience with this particular visa type, and whether you invest in a property or a CD ultimately comes down to your personal preference and your risk profile. I do think we'll do a full video on investing in CDs versus property at some point. But for now, let's just say I was interested in both a certificate of deposit and property. Can I combine the two and still be eligible for the investor visa?
Yeah, you will be eligible, but you need to choose which one you want to provide the documents to the government.
Got it. And I'm assuming each one of those would have to be over that $47,000 threshold. So yeah, for example, if I had, let's say, I bought some property, rural property for $20,000, and then I wanted to have a CD for $27,000, it's not possible to combine the two to a combined total of $47,000 and then apply for the visa?
No, you need to provide one document
Sure.
with $47,000 investment. So you need to choose
So one or the other. You can't
one or
combine.
the other.
Awesome. And another question that does always come up a lot when talking about CDs is the insurance. Can you walk me through the insurance limits for that?
Yes, you're right. There is a deposit insurance in Ecuador. It's called COSEDE, and they protect $32,000 in your investment in any bank in Ecuador.
So the maximum investment amount would be $32,000 for the insurance component, but obviously the CD is $47,000. So therefore there's effectively a $15,000 gap that is just simply not going to be insured for that CD. Is that
exactly
correct? Okay, awesome. And so what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of the investor visa for potential expats?
The advantage include the opportunity to invest in Ecuador economy and potentially in returns on investments. However, the cons involve the need for substantial upfront capital at the risk associated with investment ventures. Not everyone have the money around to invest right away.
Sure, $47,000. It sounds like an easy way to get a visa, but you need to have $47,000 in liquid assets in order to apply. Right?
Yeah.
Great. And so it should be noted that the investment amount required by Ecuador is much less than most other countries with similar visa programs. For example, I do think Portugal has a similar program, but their investment amount is something like 250,000 euros at this point, which is obviously a lot more than the $47,000. So you definitely want to do a little bit of shopping around if this is one of the main things that matters to you. Now let's move on to the professional visa. This is the visa that I originally attained around 6-7 years ago now. And Betsy, what qualifications and procedures are necessary to obtain this visa in Ecuador?
Great. Yeah, the professional visa is one of the most attractive for young people. In fact, this visa have two completely different processes. The first is to register your degree in Ecuador in the Senate, and the second one is the application per se. So basically, in the professional visa, you're gonna need the degree registration, your original degree apostille, your background checks, and a minimum income of $470 per month.
Okay, great. And let's just dig into that Senate requirements a little bit, as it is very different compared to all the other visa types. What is that Senate registration process?
This is where many people get super confused since it's different information around. It's not that complicated process, but you need to prove your original degree, apostille, and the other documents I'm going to mention. You don't need to apostille this document for the moment. It is the transcripts of your degree. You need the IC letter, or it's called the UNESCO letter as well. And you need to show a document from your university explaining if you take these classes in person, mixed, or completely online.
I think they call that a modality letter.
It's modality letter.
So basically, they don't want to accept people that have only studied online. Is that the bottom line?
No, they can accept many degrees with people studying just 100% online, but it depends in which area is your degree.
Got it. So if you are studying something online, then they're potentially going to be a little bit more picky as to the type of degree.
It depends in which area is your degree. If you study arts, you need to take these classes at least the 90% in person.
Got it. I understand. So if you studied online, basically you need to take a little bit more precautions as to whether or not your degree is actually going to be accepted.
Yeah, that's why you need to contact us first on time, because usually this process takes around 3 months to have done just the registration, and your tourist visa have just 90 days, which is in the 90 days.
Got it. So I guess that's probably the main con for this visa, right? Is that you effectively have the two different processes. You've got the Senasic process, which can take time, and that's just going to impact your overall timeline. It's just going to take longer. So it's just something extra to potentially look out for.
See, but if you are going to apply for this visa, of course, you can start this process from abroad. And the first step you can do then is just send the documents to Ecuador and we can start making the registration. Then when you arrive, we can apply for the visa.
Understood. And still on the Senasic side of things, and this is one of those questions that kind of gets tossed around a little bit. I think it's a little bit outdated now, but this list of Senasic approved universities, is this still important or is that just gone by the wayside now?
No, before they had a list with universities. If universities show up in this list, then you can register your degree in the Senasic. But right now, it's not like that. You can apply it from university, but it needs to be a legal university. You need to prove the stamps in the documents. You need to prove an official email address, website. So they verify all this information.
So the list itself isn't important as long as the university can prove that they're legitimate, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, awesome. And are there any other pros or cons for the professional visa? My understanding is that the income requirement for this particular visa is at the lower end of the scale.
See, exactly. That's one of the pro. You can apply for this visa super easy if you have the degree and you make the registration. Then you need to show the income from the previous month with $470, which is the basic salary here in Ecuador.
Great, which is obviously a lot less than the retirement visa, for example, at $1,410. So it's like a third, basically.
Exactly.
Awesome. And so with the background checks, many of our viewers are from the US. Can you walk me through the process for obtaining the background checks for US citizens?
Yes, you need to obtain two different ones, the FBI and the State Spotted Report. Okay. So not all the states in the States make this document, the police states report. So if your state don't make it, then they need to obtain a letter explaining why the state can give you this.
Yeah, okay.
And
is that tough to provide that? To provide proof that something doesn't exist can be tougher than actually just getting the thing?
No, no. It's super easy, and usually all the states that they don't share this information, they have already a form.
Great.
So it's easy to find. And the FBI, you need to apply for the FBI. Of course, you need to fill out all the forms there, and you need to put your fingerprinters and send them to the FBI. So they will give you all this information, and then you can apposit all of them.
Got it. With the fingerprinting, that's interesting. We do get a lot of questions, or I get a lot of questions for people basically asking about the visa process. And one of the questions is generally the fingerprints from Ecuador. Can we provide those fingerprints in Ecuador, send them to the US?
Yes, you can. But there is a risk because sometimes they just can reply to you, these fingerprints doesn't work for us. You need to make another one.
Got it.
And it can take time, even just for have that answer, gonna take time.
Yeah.
So it's super difficult if you are playing around with the time being a tourist. My suggestion is if you still don't have time to receive the document there, just leave the fingerprinters, start the process there, and then you can come back and they can send the document to you here in Ecuador.
Got it. So it's generally going to be less risky if you do the fingerprints in the US with that particular provider that state recommends?
Yeah, the FBI, for example, they work with a few offices. They have legal ones that you need to send the fingerprinters there, or you can go there to obtain your fingerprinters with the ink. So it's more likely you're gonna have your FBI background check with their process than if you are going here, you print your own form, and then you are going to the police to obtain your fingerprinters and then send to the States. It's a huge process.
Understood. Thank you very much. And now moving on to the rentista visa. This is probably one of the more interesting visas for me anyway, just because it can be quite broad in terms of the different activities that can come underneath it. Can you just run through the eligibility criteria and the application process?
Yes, the rentista visa is one of the famous as well, but problem is, like everybody just knows, the rentista visa for digital nomads. And there is two ways. The rentista visa per se, which is if you have an income for every month and it's a minimum of $1,410 per month, you can apply for this visa. But this income, you need to prove this income is for, you have a property in the States and you rent these properties, or you have business out there and you receive this income. So you need to prove this income is completely legal and for how long is this income. So if, for example, again, if you rent an apartment, then you need to show that the apartment is under your name, you are the owner, and for how long you are making this contract with the person renting.
So what is eligible, for example, if I have a year, like I've rented my apartment for 1 year in the US, is that going to be eligible? Or if I've rented it for 3 years, does that make it look better?
It needs to be for more than the time of the visa, which is 2 years in Ecuador.
Got it. So prior history doesn't matter. It's just moving forward what really matters. So if your rentista visa is for 2 years, you would effectively have to have that lease covering that entire 2-year period. Is that correct?
Okay. You need to cover the whole period. If not, they won't accept the visa.
What if, for example, the same scenario, we have a lease for 1 year, but there is a clause in that which effectively says it's going to automatically renew the following year? Would that be acceptable, or are they very strict on, no, it needs to be absolute 2 years in writing right now?
No, they will. They will accept if there is a part of the contract that say is automatically renewed, then they will accept that.
Okay.
For the digital nomad visa, which is a part of the rentista visa, it's completely different. You can have your own company and receive this income, and you need to prove that your company is registered in any country under your name. And if you don't have your own company, then you are a digital nomad per se, working for somebody else. Then you need to prove a contract, a letter, something legal explaining that you work for them and how much you receive every month, which again, the minimum is $1,410.
Sure. So the same scenario, let's say it's, instead of a lease, it's an employment contract. So we have a 2-year employment contract with income requirements over 1,410. That is pretty clear to me that that's going to be eligible. Exactly. But if we have the 1-year employment agreement, that's probably not going to be accepted unless it has some sort of continuation clause in that.
Exactly. You need to add something to continue this more than 1 year, but it to be so clear. Sure. And even they can't double about it.
And so you definitely would potentially need to talk to your boss under this scenario and say, look, we need to update the agreement. Here's what I need. Are you willing to help out with that?
Yeah, usually we have few cases that they contact us, the boss contact us to explain, to receive an explanation about how the contract need to be.
Yeah. And so that's with an employment scenario. Let's say you're a freelancer, as you mentioned before, you have your own company. Let's say, for argument's sake, you have a LLC in the US and it's under your name. You meet the income requirements, but then the ongoing income requirements, how can I prove those? Is it just using previous history, or do they need something else?
Yeah, you need a previous history. The company can be new, but you need to keep in mind that you need to show for last 3 months you received this income.
Got it.
And it need to be consistent. You can play around. $1,410 is the minimum, but if you receive 15 the next month and the other month is less than that, you don't need to be worried because you still meet the minimum requirement.
Got it. So let's say hypothetically I earn $10,000 1 month, but then for the next 2 months I didn't earn any money. Would that still be okay?
No,
No?
they won't accept.
Okay.
You need to receive a mensual income.
Okay. So it has to be monthly, but the limit, so in a different scenario, 1 month I receive $1,000, but then the following month I receive $2,000, next month I receive $2,000. That's likely to be okay.
Yeah, it will be okay.
Okay. Fantastic. And so for all of these visa types, we're talking about the initial residency application. This is known as the temporary residency. And so Betsy, can you just tell me how long does this temporary residency last and what is the process for converting this to permanent residency?
Yes. All the temporary residency visas in Ecuador for now is 2 years. If you want to convert this to a permanent residency visa, you can't leave the country for more than 90 days. Okay. If not, you're gonna be in trouble. So you need more requirements, and maybe they can deny your application for the permanent residency visa. It depends on which visa you are as well. So
got it. So if you are planning on taking that next step from temporary to permanent residency, do not leave Ecuador for more than 90 days during that initial 2-year period. That's effectively the recommendation, right?
Yeah, exactly.
How long can someone spend outside of Ecuador during the permanent residency? And do these differ for each visa type? Because I think there's a lot of outdated information out there, especially relating to the investor visa, that it might have certain advantages that other visas don't have. So, but when it comes to the permanent visa, are the days outside of Ecuador the same, or do they differ?
Yeah, basically the permanent residency visa is don't leave the country for more than 180 days. The first 2 years, and after that, don't leave the country for more than 5 years. If no, they can cancel your visa. And it's the same for all the visas. If you want to convert your temporary residency visa into a permanent residency visa, is all the same requirements for all the visa types.
Got it. So I don't have additional time out of Ecuador on my permanent visa if I have an investor visa versus a professional retirement or anything else?
No.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks for clearing that up. Moving on to the last visa type, and it is very different from the others, the amparo visa. Now, it's mainly used to bring dependents, including partners, into Ecuador, but what are the main requirements and steps to secure this visa?
The main thing is you need to bring all your documentation in order, because you need to prove this person that are going to apply as a dependent is your family. So if you bring kids, bring birth certificates. If you bring a spouse, bring the marriage certificate and all the documents apostille, so you can apply for that.
What are the limits of that? So for example, can I bring my parents on a dependent visa?
You can bring your parents, you can bring a spouse and children.
Okay, cousins?
No, it's just until the second grade.
Got it. But it's interesting because parents, you wouldn't normally think of your parents as a dependent, right? Normally it's the other way around. But they're definitely eligible. And we see that quite a bit, especially, let's say you have a family member, a mum or dad that's older and they want to move to Ecuador with you, then they potentially wouldn't be comfortable or just wouldn't be able to do it on their own. And so I do see this a little bit in the children actually getting the primary visa and then using their parents as the dependent, which is, I think it's great that we actually allow that to happen.
Yes, in Ecuador we can apply, all the kids can apply as a dependent from that, but like us being adults, yeah, you can use that option.
I've worked with many visa providers during my 6 or 7 years in Ecuador, and as a customer, but also as an advertiser. Now, what strikes me about you and your service is that you're careful not to overbook yourself. And I do really appreciate that because I see so many visa providers that start off providing a quality service, but then as they start to get popular, then they effectively just don't have the systems in place that allow them to scale. And ultimately, service does suffer and the client results also start to slide. And so what systems do you have in place to ensure clients receive quality service?
The first thing, I always evaluate each case so we can know how long it's going to take to work in that case and if you meet the requirements for the kind of visa you want to apply or we suggest you to apply. So we evaluate first with the 15 minutes call, we evaluate your case and then we take all the steps starting from there.
Great. And I've also seen you actually have a good case management system, which, look, most businesses here in Ecuador, they use WhatsApp, maybe email if they're lucky, and that's it when it comes to some sort of system. But you have a slightly more in-depth customer management system. Can you just walk me through at a high level, what that is and what that allows you to do?
Yeah, we have a CRM, so we work with this program to have all the information used in one place. So we keep track of every case, all the information, all the communications through that CRM. So it's kind of one of the best things we have because I know out there is many providers, they don't have a system to keep all the information on track.
Yeah, it is quite easy for some information to slip through cracks if you don't have a system. Us in our real estate business is exactly the same. We deal with a lot of clients, and if we don't have the client's history, and these are long transactions. Real estate visas are the same. They can take a year, 2 years or more. And so having all that customer history, for us, it's super important, and it's great that you guys do that as well. So I think that's a great value add. And finally, what advice would you give to individuals considering moving to Ecuador regarding the visa selection process and settling into the country?
My best suggestion is start your process evaluating your time, your income, basically all the information about the visas, and then have an idea what you want to do. And then reach out to find the exactly way to follow. Start all the process months before you move into Ecuador so you can have everything in order.
I think that the time, that's probably the most important one. Ultimately, it comes down to like during the move here, it's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle. You know, you've got your visa process, obviously that's a big one, but then you've got your real estate needs, that's another big one, and that's going to be different depending on if you're renting or buying. But then maybe you've got some household goods that are coming into the country, that's another big thing that you need to take care of. And so taking a step back and having a bit of a holistic view, it can be tough because you're dealing with a provider here, provider over there, and whether or not those timelines actually overlap well, that's kind of hard for the end consumer to always pull together. But if you give yourself the most time possible with the visa process, I think that's really going to be the best thing that you can do as a consumer, because that's the one thing that you absolutely need to do. You know, if you want to be here for a long term, you can't be here without a visa. So definitely start that process early.
Yeah, exactly.
That was fantastic, Betsy. Thank you so much for your time. I learned a bunch, and I'm sure our viewers did too. There is much more that we could cover, and I think we'll probably do some more videos on visas if you're open to that. But if someone is interested in contacting you, what is the best way they can do that?
Yes, people can contact us through our website, expatgroup.com, and actually we have a Facebook group. If you have any questions, it's Expat Group Q&A, and actually I answer these questions through videos, tiny videos. So you can reach out for that. And even if you want to have a free consultation, you can book the consultation directly on our website.
Awesome. I will link to these in the description. And of course, if you are looking to rent or buy in Cuenca, you're welcome to contact me, jason@yapatree.com. But looking for more videos about moving to Cuenca, maybe check out this one next. Ciao, ciao.
Yeah. No, forget. I won't say nothing. Yeah. Whatever.
Whatever. Let's get out of here.
Whatever.